Hey everybody, I'm gonna trust that is streaming now. I was gonna put together a video where it's like edited and all put together and everything, but it's far easier for me just to go live and record myself and show you things using Zoom, at least for now. And what I want to talk about today is why TechnoTutor is the future of education. But within that, I'm going to give some examples. So I'm not just going to talk from a theoretical perspective because I've got lots of videos like that, but I want to show you an example of why what I'm saying is true and how it's true. All right, so this will be a lot of fun. It'll be interesting, I think, for everybody. For those of you who have been following, sort of Katie and my journey through, not only building TechnoTutor over the past, let's see, I started TechnoTutor in 2013 as a company here in the US. So starting from there, obviously we did a lot before then. And the technology itself had been tested for many years prior to us starting the company. But our journey doing that, building the company, but then also having kids and using TechnoTutor with them. We had been using it with ourselves and our clients, prior to that, obviously, but now we're using it with our own children and really showing like this is a real living example of what is possible, not just in the children's education, but also as parents and the relationship with your children and everything. So it really takes everything to a whole nother level. So when I say it's the future of education, there's a lot implied within that statement. But what I want to talk about today is particularly the context of the education that we think of when we think of things like school and learning technical things and science and math and stuff like that. So I want to show some examples and if you've been following kind of our little process here, especially over the past like year or so with Max specifically, who is our 3-year-old, he'll be 4 at the end of October. I'm making this video at the end of July. So let's see, that's August, September, October. So about 3 months. So he's 3 months away from being 4. And what I want to show y'all today is an example of what he's doing right now. Now, right, and literally right now, he's downstairs with Katie and his sister Seneca, who's 1.5. She'll be 2 at the beginning of October. They're both literally sitting on the couch right now doing TechnoTutor with Katie. So everything that I'm going to show you is vocabulary that he has integrated using TechnoTutor. So generally speaking, we might introduce something to him like that's interesting or of value, but he won't really gravitate towards it until he has the vocabulary to really start understanding it. And what we've noticed is that when we build in the vocabulary within him using TechnoTutor first, or at least in the beginning of introducing something to him, he'll really take an interest in it. And I think a lot of times parents believe, well, I know they believe that their kids have like sort of natural interests and you have to figure out what those are and then give that to them. But the reality is they will be interested in what becomes a part of them. So if you put your kid in front of Pokemon and Disney and Star Wars and all that, that is literally impulsing them and programming them with that information. And then they start to really have an interest in that. So, and I know it's the case. So when my son Max is around that stuff, when maybe he goes into an environment where some kids are doing that, like playing with Pokemon or whatever, he has no interest in it. He just doesn't care about it. It's not interesting to him because it's not a part of his vocabulary. So I'm going to show you an example of what is a part of his vocabulary. So it doesn't mean he doesn't have fun, because I know parents might feel like, well, he's a kid, he should be playing with toys and everything. And I'm going to show you what his toys are. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and share my sound as well on my computer because I'm going to play some clips and everything for you guys. So I'm going to click share here. All right, so I don't know if you can still see me, but that doesn't matter because I want you to see this picture. So here's Max. Let's see here. Here is an example of, let me just look up snap circuits. Why is there an R there? There we go. Snap circuits. So this is an example of what he likes to play with. Okay, I'm just going to show you a quick example. In fact, I think he has this exact kit right here, or at least something very similar to it. And these are basically different electronic components. I'm just moving my mouse around to zoom in. That's a solar panel attachment, so it replaces the need for a battery. That's an LED that you can hook up wires to make it display different numbers and letters. That's a recording circuit. That is a, what is that? I think that's some kind of transistor or something. This Max would actually know exactly what that is. This is a diode. So I'm just showing you some different, there's some kind of meter. There's an FM uh, antenna. I think that's like a solenoid or something right there. Here you have some resistors in the yellow. We have some switches and different capacitors in green. Whole bunch of different things. These are some cool circuit or integrated circuits that you can put in there that produce music and so forth. It's just a lot of really cool stuff. Those are like the wires. So this is a really cool kit because they are legitimate electronic components. The only difference between this and what you might get at like an electronics store is just they have these blue, the wires themselves that connect the circuits are these blue things, so they're rigid, so you can't break them easily, and there's nothing exposed that you could shock yourself with, and you don't have to use a soldering iron. Like everything snaps together with like these sort of like metal button snaps that you probably can't see it in there, but you can kind of see the tops of them, those metal snaps. You can kind of think of it like Legos, but they're metal snaps. And then so you can build circuits, and there's a plastic grid which you can't see in here. There's a plastic grid that everything snaps onto, and there's a switch. Look, there's all these different little cool things. There's some stuff down here. One of those is a microphone. I think one of those is like a little light bulb. A lot of really cool stuff. So that is an example of, and here's a picture of Max. Oh, no, not that one. Let me see here. There we go. There's him. That's a little circuit that he built, which has a switch. It's got a resistor and a couple different LEDs, a red and a green LED, and then they're hooked up to these two battery packs. So just so you can kind of see an example of, that's a toy that he plays with, and he'll play with it for hours. He also has little toy Hot Wheel cars, and he'll play with those a little bit, but he doesn't really play with those as much anymore as when he was little. And it's just a matter of building his vocabulary. So we've really focused primarily on building his vocabulary rather than per se trying to teach him information, if that makes sense. Not to say that we don't teach him information, but in terms of the way we look at his education, it's more about building his vocabulary, because then he can understand whatever it is that he wants to learn about, or that we think that we see is best for him to learn about. So in other words, instead of trying to teach him stuff first, we focus on building the vocabulary and then supporting him to understand whatever that particular subject is. So what I want to do today, before I go too much further in just talking and everything, is I want to give a little bit of context, and then I want to show you an example of a conversation that I had with him last night. Now on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist called TechnoTutor Co-Founders Kids, and I'll show you that here before I go further. I think I have it pulled up here on my Chrome browser. And let's see here. Let me move this thing out of the way. This one here. So you can search for this on YouTube, TechnoTutor Co-Founders Kids, and you'll see I've got lots of videos on there now. And obviously this isn't all the videos we have of them. I mean, it's just a few that we show as highlights. Look, here's this video here. I'm just going to pause it. I just want to show you the date. This is May 23rd. So I'd suggest to go back and watch this, because you'll see how it's, at this point, it's mostly me building the circuits and talking to him about them. And he's sort of starting to build a vocabulary around it. But that's only May 23rd. So that's basically 2 months ago. And then okay, you want to show what we figured out? Let me turn that off. You'll see, here's some, oh, that's not it. Where is it? Here's one here. Oh, here we go. Here's one. I think this one's a little bit after that. That's June 12th. So that was like a month after that other video I just showed you. And then we've got this one here, which I'd recommend to look at those in order. July 6th. So that's just, a couple of weeks ago. And you'll hear, this is a 20-minute conversation I recorded while we were laying in bed at night with the lights off, like where he was about to fall asleep basically. And he just started talking to me about this stuff. So I recorded that, and then I put that on there for some context. So I would definitely recommend to check out these videos here. Here we go. And one of the other reasons I wanted to show you this is we put everything in here. So you can see all the way back to, let's see. Here's Max at 21 months, recognizing the alphabet. Now that wasn't the first time he was able to do it. That was just the first really good video that we got with decent lighting and everything. We have some that are a little bit prior to that. So I think around 20 months or so. I think around 18 months was when he really started to recognize the alphabet in terms of like, not in TechnoTutor, but outside of that. Well, not that he started to, but where he could do the whole thing. Like there was none that he didn't know is what I mean to say. So where he had mastered it. But we got this really good video around 21 months with Katie talking to him. So that's a good one to check out. So you can see there, and then at 22 months, he's already integrated the numbers and the math symbols like plus, minus type stuff. 24 months, so 2 years, he'd mastered the alphabet. You can see, I mean, he was totally confident with, this was Drake showing him the letters just kind of randomly. 25 months, recognizing punctuation. And then now we have a video of Seneca at 21 doing the punctuation. So she's going a little bit faster than he did. She's already at the same point he was 4 months ahead. And here's Max reading some words. This was 33 months. This was a year ago in Denver when we brought him to Denver to a Gen event, and a lot of our distributors and friends were there. So they got to see his ability to read at that young age in action. So these little cutouts, words that we brought that I put on cardboard where they could rearrange them into different sentences and he would be able to read them. So we're showing it wasn't just memorizing things in context. He understands that he could read the words automatically. But we have just lots of stuff showing, you know, his abilities. And then we also putting all the videos with Seneca, so you can see that progress as well. Here's an example of Katie doing TechnoTutor with the kids, if you want to see something like that. But the point is, we're really showing the progression, and that this is not just a one-time thing real quick, you know, it's an interesting little result. It's like it's a holistic sort of a thing. And now he's doing basic math. I haven't even got those videos yet, really. There's like one here, I guess, and a couple of him talking about mathematics and so forth. But we really haven't even scratched the surface of showing you guys what he can do mathematically. I mean, we're already doing the sums that you might not even learn until first grade, I would think. Yeah, that's about right, first grade or so. But he can do them automatically. And it's funny, he'll wake up in the morning and the first thing he'll say to me, like literally when he wakes up, he'll be like, Dad, what's 1 billion plus 2 billion? Like he just wants to talk about mathematics all the time, and circuits and all this stuff. And it's not because he's some special little kid who has some intrinsic interest in these things. It's because we're building his vocabulary with TechnoTutor, and then we're putting these things in his environment. So it's like we're exposing him to these things. So it's very specific. So without further ado, I will show you this little clip that I wanted to play. I'm going to share just some pictures of him while we're listening to the clip. It's only about a 6-minute clip, but it's really, really good. So let me go back here to Chrome, share my screen, share my sound. I'm going to put this picture on here. Here's him. I'll just put it on the picture of him talking about these circuits. Oh, actually, before that, I want to show you this real quick. So because there's a video in reference to this. So this is a video series that we started letting him watch, that we checked out first. It was pretty cool, nothing weird in it. So we let him start watching some of it. I think I don't even know how far he is. I think he's probably all the way through like here or so, around here. And I want to show you a quick clip. I think I have to switch my share. Let me share this QuickTime video real quick. Okay, here we go. And we're just going to play through some of this a little bit. I might skip around just so you can kind of hear like the level of vocabulary of the video.
It will not work and you could damage the LED. Now, what if you have an LED that has both of its metal legs the same length? Well, we can't tell which one is the anode and which one is the cathode. Well, some LEDs have a little flat spot just above the cathode lead, and that'll indicate the cathode, or which leg should be hooked up to the negative terminal of your circuit. So
you can kind of see him watching this video. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here.
Electronics.
To before, yeah, to where after Katie, because Katie pauses it. I think it was another video loaded in the next video in the series. So she's going to ask, I'm going to ask him some questions, or she is. So you can kind of see. Actually, let me back up a little bit so you can see what they're talking about.
Do we need 200 ohms? Do we need 1,000 ohms? Well, we're gonna find out how to calculate that in the next video. Hopefully you guys understood that. LEDs are very important. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave them down below in the comments, and I or someone else will hopefully answer or help you with your problem. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video. What's going on, everyone? My name is Kodomor, and welcome back to Electronics Episode 7. In this episode, we are going to learn how to choose the proper value of resistor to put into a circuit. Now, in our case, we just learned about LEDs, so we need to...
Hey, what is...
So I just want to pause it real quick because the end of that video, it was loading a new video, and you'll hear him. He was saying in our next video, or in this new video, we're going to talk about how to figure out how much resistance you need in a circuit and so forth based on the LED that you have. So that's the next video he's going to watch. In this particular video that I'm showing you, he hasn't watched it yet because he was about to. But then in the clip I'm going to play for you in a moment where he's discussing this stuff with me, he's already watched that video and studied it a few times. And remember, all of this vocabulary he has already integrated into TechnoTutor. And it was very easy to do because, I mean, it takes some time, takes a few days or a week or so. But the particular little toy they're using, the snap circuits, they're these electronic circuits, they come with manuals and they have all the vocabulary for everything in there. So we just put that in the TechnoTutor, support him to integrate it, and then we go on. So you'll hear Katie's gonna ask him some questions, but he's not gonna necessarily know the exact answers yet. He knows the answers to a lot of the questions he's gonna ask, but there's some specific ones and I'll explain in a moment. So I'll just watch this for now.
Dave, tell us about?
They told us about not like batteries, not so like they were just talking about like
What was he saying about a circuit? If you try to connect a 9-volt battery to an LED, what could happen?
it would go, but you need a resistor.
So what he said there, because
Yeah.
obviously Seneka's standing right next to him, and she's talking a little bit in my ear or into the microphone. But what he said was you would need the LED will burn out if you don't have the right resistor. So you need a resistor. Someone's gonna back it up so you can hear that response.
What was he saying about a circuit? If you try to connect a 9-volt battery to an LED, what could happen?
It would go, but you need a
He said it would burn out
resistor.
the LED,
Yeah.
but you need a resistor.
Do we know what level of ohms we would need? Or has he not told us that yet? 10 ohms? That might work for our batteries. Don't we have a resistor with 10 ohms?
No.
What's the smallest we have?
100.
That's right.
Oh.
That's the smallest we have.
But what voltage is our battery packs?
3.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's right.
Feet.
So now we have to figure out what's the minimum resistance we need
Because
to not burn out the LEDs,
Yes.
right?
we already burned one out, didn't we?
No, well, that was my LED. LED main diode.
It wasn't?
No, it was just that.
So to give
L1.
context there, Katie says we already burned one out, and he said, no, that was not an LED, a light emitting diode. That was just an L1, which in the snap circuits, there's LEDs, but then there's also these like little incandescent light bulbs that are not the same exact thing as the LED bulbs. And so that's what he was actually correcting her and saying, no, we didn't burn out an LED, we burned out a different kind of bulb. Just so you can see like the comprehension level. Because one of the criticisms, well, it's not even really a criticism, it's like an objection that people have when we say, if I were to say to someone, my 3-year-old has, can read and so forth, they always say like, well, but how do you know he's comprehending? And it's like, how do you know anyone's comprehending something? You ask them questions, they can clarify, they can correct, they can explain more, they can do something with the information, for example, right? So just wanted to give you all a little example of that. And then in that next video he was going to watch later, the person making the video explains how to calculate the proper resistance. But I want to show you one more thing too, which is, I think it's on here, because you heard him talking about, I asked him what's the lowest level of resistor that we have. And this is this R1, the smallest resistor that's in the set. And as you can see, it says 100, and that's the ohm symbol. That's the units of resistance. So it's 100 ohms. So he knows. And then here's the other ones right here, which I'm going to show you that a little bit later. Because he's going to talk about that in this little clip I'm going to play. So I'm going to leave it on here for now. And then let me check something. Actually, I just want to make sure my screen was being shared, or my sound was being shared. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up this little clip right here. So you can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm just gonna play this little clip for you guys so you can hear him talking. So this is me last night about probably 9:30 or 10 o'clock when he was in bed. Lights were out. We were just chatting. And so he's not looking at any of this stuff. He's just talking about it from, his understanding and memory and so forth. Okay, so kind of check that out. Play this, and I'll probably give some commentary.
Like resistors or...
Oh, well, can't tell you about LEDs.
Oh, tell me about the LEDs.
Well, look, if you just have a very powerful battery and you connect it up to an LED, it will power LED very fast, and it'll burn out the LED.
Oh.
It'll burn the LED.
So what do you need to do then to make that not happen?
Put a resistor.
Huh. Can you just put any resistor you want in there?
No, you have to put a specific resistor.
A what?
Specific resistor.
Oh, are you saying specific?
Specific
Yeah.
resistor.
Oh, you have to put a specific resistor? Huh. Interesting. So what does it depend on, like the size of the battery?
Mhm.
Huh.
Well, if you want a 9-volt battery, 9 volts battery is very powerful. That.
What kind of resistor, what amount of resistance do you think you'd need for that?
1 billion.
1 billion, really?
Yeah!
Or are you just being silly, or is that really?
I'm being silly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Actually, 240
240 what?
resist ohms.
240 ohms?
Mm.
For a 9-volt battery?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
To lab an LED.
To light up an LED?
Mhm.
Interesting. So what happens if you put not enough resistance?
You can't put 1,000.
You could?
Yes.
Okay, but what happens if you put like 10?
Well, that might be a problem
Why would that be a problem?
because a 9-volt battery is more power than 0.10. It would just take away some of it, and then the light would still burn out.
Oh, because the resistor's not taking enough of the battery's power?
Mhm.
Interesting.
You just need a 240 resistor
240, what's the units
ohms.
for the resistor?
Yes.
For a 9-volt battery?
Mhm.
Do you have any idea what it would be for a 3-volt battery?
Well, any kind of resistor, 100
For a 3-volt?
or
That would make sense actually, because the kit that we have, it has 3-volt battery packs, and the smallest resistor is what?
100.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
And the highest is 100,000.
That's the highest one?
Mm-hmm. It's 100,000.
Which one is that one that has 100,000?
R5.
R5?
And R4 has 10,000. And R2 and R3. I don't know how much resistance that has. R2 has 1,000.
Oh yeah, so yeah, R1 is 100, R2 is 1,000, but you weren't sure about R3? That's because it's 1.5K, so that's 1,500.
Now, notice I made a mistake there, right? Because I'm not actually as familiar with these things as he is. And he wasn't sure what that second one was, what R3 was. So we'll have to go back and correct that point. But I just want to show you guys, see, I'm just trying to explain it from my memory. But now that I'm looking at it now, I'm saying, oh, look, it was actually 5.1, not 1.5. So that was a mistake on my part. But notice how he knows that this is 100,000, 10,000, 1,000. Now, at the stage he's at developmentally in terms of his vocabulary, he's not yet understanding what decimal numbers are about, which is why this particular one right here, he's not clear on, right? So he's going, I don't really know what that one is because it doesn't make sense to him, the 5.1 yet. So that's still a point that it requires a little bit more foundational vocabulary for him until he's able to really understand what decimals are in the context of numbers and so forth. So because it's like when you're dividing by tens, you get into the decimals. So he's still in the process of learning that. So obviously we'll build in that vocabulary, but you guys can see like this level of vocabulary that he's got right now. This is beyond what most high schoolers will understand about electronic circuits. So I'm gonna go back and finish this.
And then I think the next one is 10,000, like you said, and then 100,000.
100,000.
Yeah.
10,000 are 5.
So I guess the more power you put into it, the bigger the resistor you need, so that the circuits don't burn, or the components don't burn out.
Oh, look.
What?
The other L1 burn out. You seen it?
Huh?
Did you know that L1 burnt out?
One of ours?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So now do you know why that happened? Probably.
Why?
What do you think, based on what you've learned now?
I think we used the wrong resistor.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably, but we didn't know that before we did it. But now you're learning, if you're gonna put a lamp or an LED into a circuit, we got to make sure we put enough resistance. And in that video you watched, you learned a way of calculating. I think there was like a website or something where you can actually figure out, based on the resistor, or based on the voltage, how much resistance you need. Right? But you had to like look up a whole bunch of stuff, so it would, based on the battery and the LED and all that stuff. Right? So that's pretty cool. Thanks for explaining that to me.
So let's do one.
So obviously some folks might have to watch this video again to really see the full context, right, and understand everything he's talking about there. But what's really cool is if you go and watch, if you were to go and watch these videos, let me go back to that real quick. The ones he watched right here, for example, and I'm thinking it's, I would have to go back and actually check, because I don't, oh, here it is right here. How much resistance? So here's the episode on resistors. Here's the episode on LEDs, and then how much resistance, right? So he's watched all the way through there. I don't know if he's watched number 8 yet, but he's watched all the way through here. And in that first video I showed you where he's watching the video and then we're asking him questions, he hadn't seen the how much resistance yet. So that's why he was understanding the principle that you need a certain amount of resistance, but he didn't know how much and so forth. So now in this conversation I just played there, he's already studied this video. So he's giving his understanding based on what he learned. So when he's explaining the reason, the circuit, the light bulb may have burned out is because we used the wrong resistor. That's not me telling him that. That's him having learned that from the video, right? So really, really, really consider this, okay? What we're saying with TechnoTutor is there's an abundance of information out there. I mean, these videos, this series with the beginners electronics I was showing you, there's a ton of these out there like that. And some are better than others, depending on the quality of the information, depending on the person giving the information and what they really understand or not. But there's experts out there who are explaining the ins and outs of every kind of subject matter you'd want. And the problem, though, is that our children and adults don't have the vocabulary integrated within them to be able to process what they're watching, what they're seeing. So it may make sense at a certain level, but they're not retaining it and really fully understanding the material so that they can take it, and when asked a question, they can respond to it, where it's not to just memorize something. So like, for example, the video didn't tell him that his lamp circuit burned out because there was too much resistance. The video was explaining the principles behind it and in the context of LEDs. And then when I asked him in that conversation I just played, so what do you think might have happened with our L1, which he was telling me had burned out? He said, because we probably used the wrong resistor. So now he's able to start troubleshooting. Now, does he have does he understand everything about circuits yet? No, obviously not. He's only to a certain point and he's got some certain fundamentals. But what's really cool is when we bought him these circuits, initially, it was me just building them with him and showing him how you can make really cool things. And he was like, wow. And he would sit and just like make up circuits and snap stuff together. And he didn't have any idea what he was doing. He wouldn't even necessarily connect them to the battery. He was just putting them together, kind of like he was just playing with Legos or something. But over time, over the past few months, we've been building his vocabulary slowly but surely, a few words a day within TechnoTutor, in addition to all the other stuff he's learning within that. And so at this point now, when he's watching these videos, he already has that vocabulary, like it's within him. Now, I know it's probably difficult if you're watching this and you don't have TechnoTutor or you haven't seen it already and really understand what it does, it may be difficult to understand what I mean when I say have the vocabulary within you, because we're so used to just hearing things and memorizing it, but we don't really understand what physical integrated learning really is. And that's what TechnoTutor is about. I'm not, my purpose within making these videos, everything I do is not to explain to you how TechnoTutor works and what it does. It's more to show you what the benefit is and what the long-term result would be, especially not just for your children or our children, but for society as a whole. So if you want to know how does it actually work, like let me see it work and let me see it really does what I'm saying, you'll have to go to the website and contact one of the distributors. I'll show you how you can do that, just so that's obvious. If you just go to our website here, all right, techno-tutor.com, and you go to contact us, then you just type that in and send a message, and it's pretty simple. So, you know, anybody who might say, well, you're not telling us how it actually works, like you can find out how it works, but that's not something that I can explain to you right now, because one, you don't really have the vocabulary for it, which is what our distributors do, is they help you understand what all the ins and outs of it, so you can ask questions, but you actually get to use it and see that it works, right? That's part of the point of having a demonstration of it. So my purpose is just for you to see what's the bigger context of everything here. And when you consider it, there's so much emphasis right now on STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and now they even call it STEAM. I think there's an A in there. It's something, they just added letters all the time, right? But the point is they're emphasizing that we need to have more science understanding, science background. Everyone says you should believe science and science is important, all this stuff. But there's very few people who actually have the vocabulary to really understand science. So what ends up happening is they hear a scientist say something, or they see a headline, which is misrepresenting what the actual scientific study actually showed. And they just see the headline that says scientist said this, so they just believe it because they don't have the vocabulary within them to actually go and read it themselves and understand it. But when you look at the scenario I'm showing you here with Max, he's only 3.5 years old, right? He's only 3.5 years old. He's not a 15-year-old kid. He's 3.5, and he's sitting there explaining why a particular component on an electronic circuit that he was building was burning out. And he understands why. And it's not me sitting there telling him. He's watching tutorial videos. He's building his vocabulary with TechnoTutor. He's watching tutorial videos. And then he's going back and looking at things again. And he's building an understanding of something. And when you study, you know, on my bookshelf up here, I'll point this row right here, okay, is where I have most of my biographies and autobiographies that I've read, or at least the ones I like. And this green one here is about Warren Buffett. When he was like 9 years old, he started his first business. I think it was like 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that. By the time he was 12, he had read every book on wealth building in the Omaha Public Library where he lived. Right. So, and you look at someone like Bill Gates, when he was in middle school, he was writing computer programs, coding computer programs with his friends in their little computer club that they created. Nobody else was doing that. Why do you think he had such a huge advantage going into the computer software market? He was one of the pioneers of that, right? But he had the vocabulary. I mean, his dad was a lawyer. His mom was I think she was the first female president of United Way or something like that. So he had the environment. You know, he talks about the fact that he read all the time. They had books in their home, and when they would sit at the dinner table, his parents would talk about what they were doing, like their law cases and like all this stuff going on. Like they were building their child's vocabulary. Now the thing is, you can actually build your child's vocabulary a lot more than even they did for Bill Gates. You can do it. The best time to do it is in the first 7 years. It's the best time. But the problem, and the reason why is because when you're 0 to 7, your ability to absorb information is much more open. It's like a brand new computer that doesn't have a lot on it. It's fast, but then you add more and more and more, it starts to slow down. So that 0 to 7 has now started to decrease to 3 to 5 because of all of the information technology. It's like filling up children's hard drives faster because they're putting more and more and more information. Think about it, HD TV is more information in one frame than a frame previous or prior to, you know, that. And then they're getting kids iPhones, you're giving them iPads, all this stuff. They're being exposed to all this information. It's filling up their hard drive. So their natural learning ability window is closing even quicker. So within that time period, you really want to make sure you support your children with an effective vocabulary. Now, the problem is most parents don't have that vocabulary already. They don't know how to learn stuff anymore. but also what happens outside of that window. So with TechnoTutor, you have the ability to, in that natural learning ability phase, put a lot more information into the child than they would have otherwise had. Like, I mean, I don't even know how you can quantify it, because if you look at Max, he's building electronic circuits on his own, and he's troubleshooting them on his own. Okay. Now that doesn't mean we're not there guiding him. It's not like we're not just letting him, here's an iPad, go watch whatever. Like, no, oh, you want to learn about circuits? Let me find a good series you can watch. Here you go. Put the guidance control on the phone so he can't click off to some other Twitter or something like that. Right. So we're there to guide, but we're not teaching him the information. Now we have a high vocabulary. So if he says something that's incorrect, we can sort of step in and help him clarify it. We can ask him questions and we can learn the stuff. But some of the stuff he's learning about, I don't even know all that stuff because I haven't necessarily sat and specifically studied all that. So a lot of the things I'm learning in real time with him, but I also use TechnoTutor. So my ability to learn and take in new information is open as well. Not to the degree he is, though, because I didn't have this when I was his age. But think about it. If your child could have the vocabulary of Bill Gates, Albert Einstein, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos, or whoever you want, by the time they're 7 years old, I mean, why wouldn't you want that? And so we're showing you that with Max. We'll show you with Seneca as well, but of course she's still in that process where she's not doing circuits yet. So you may not see it with her yet because she's only 1.5. But go look at that playlist I showed you with our co-founders, TechnoTutor kids. She's 4 months ahead of him. So what do you think she's going to be doing when she's 3, when she's 5, when she's 7? What do you think he's going to be doing 5 years from now when he's 8 years old? And if you're still thinking in the 21st century that putting your kids in school or having them sit at home and do some kind of online curriculum through a school or a homeschooling thing or whatever is going to cut it, you are doing your child a massive disservice, because we're showing you the potential. That imagine if your child, even if they were 8 years old, by the time they were 8, they were doing what Max is doing. Wouldn't you be like, holy mackerel, that's not even possible? But it is possible. So if we can do it with a 3-year-old, why can't you do it with an 8-year-old? All right. Now, using TechnoTutor itself is very, very simple. You don't need to be an expert in any of this stuff. It's simply a tool to physically integrate the vocabulary so the child can process the information. You can also use it for yourself, and therefore you can learn as well. So you certainly wouldn't want your child to just go right past you and you're still stupid, because they're not going to respect you anymore, right? So my suggestion would be that you use it as well, just like Katie and I use it. Let me see if there's any other points I wanted to share with you. I think that might actually be it. So let me just go back over this stuff real quick. If you want to reach out to us, go to the TechnoTutor website, send us some information. But really check out this playlist. Just search TechnoTutor Co-Founders Kids on YouTube, right? You'll see it's under my channel, right? And watch through some of these videos, right? This is Max playing the sight words. There's some game that one of his relatives sent him, and it's got all these little words on these bugs. And he got bored with it very quickly because he already knows all the words. So he was like, what's the point of this game? It was because you have to swat the bug whenever someone says the word or something. And he was just like, this is stupid. Like, why would I do this? And you should watch the video. He just knows them all. And then they don't play with that anymore. He's like, I want to play with circuits. I want to build something. I don't want to just play this game where it's like really easy, right? He wants to build stuff and learn, right? So take a look through these things, right? And so the other thing too to pay attention to is to look at the trajectory that Seneca is on. So no one can say this is some kind of just, well, Max is just really smart or something like that. And he's, he just got lucky or something like that. Like Seneca's moving faster than him, right? This is not a coincidence. This is by design. Would you like to design your child's life so that they have the most effective vocabulary, the best education possible? If so, I highly encourage you to look into TechnoTutor. Send me a message, place a comment on wherever you're seeing this if you want to get in touch with me or ask more questions. And I'm happy to share more. Okay, but check out this playlist and please share this video, because obviously that's going to help us get more exposure just on these particular points. And maybe there's somebody that's in your, social circle or network who really is maybe struggling right now with this whole lockdowns and the schools, everything with post-coronavirus and all this stuff, that they don't know how they're going to educate their kids. And look, they're going to get access to all of us and everything that we know. So if they have TechnoTutor, it's not like they're just going to be on their own to figure it out, okay? Because we really, really genuinely want to help not just individuals. Of course, we want to help parents, but we want to help society. We want to help everybody become smart and intelligent. So they're not just like out in the streets rioting and rebelling and all this stuff, because that's not a solution, any of that stuff. Because whether you realize it or not, the jobs are going to the robots and the AI and all that stuff. So we need to prepare a generation of children to be able to process information in an entirely different way than they've ever been taught to do it before. And that's what TechnoTutor. All right. See you on the next one. Take care.